Close your eyes. Breathe in slowly. Feel the weight of your thoughts settle as the world around you fades into quiet stillness. Tonight, we embark on a journey, one without a destination, without a final answer, without a neatly wrapped conclusion. This is not a path of certainty, but of wonder, where questions stretch into infinity and answers dissolve like mist before they can ever be grasped. Have you ever stared into the night sky and felt the vastness of existence press against your mind, filling you with a sense of both awe and unease? That feeling, that deep, unshakable curiosity, is what guides us now. We are about to step into the unknown, where reality itself begins to blur, where time bends and stretches, where the mind wrestles with puzzles that defy logic. Some questions have no answers, or perhaps the answers exist but remain just out of reach, like stars hidden behind an endless veil of darkness. What existed before the universe? Does time truly move, or is it just an illusion we impose upon the world? What is consciousness, and why does it feel so real, so personal, yet so fleeting? Tonight, we will explore these mysteries and many more, not to solve them, but to drift deeper into their infinite depths. Let each question pull you further into a state of quiet contemplation, where the mind slows, the body relaxes, and sleep becomes inevitable. The more you think, the more the answers slip away, and in that endless loop of wonder, you surrender to rest. So settle in, let go of the need to understand, and allow yourself to float weightlessly into the abyss of the unknown. This is your journey through the unanswered, through the mysteries of time, existence, and reality itself. And as you listen, as you ponder, as you feel your consciousness slip into the gentle embrace of sleep, remember, some questions are not meant to be answered. They are meant to be dreamed about. Now let's begin. What existed before the universe? A question that defies logic and stretches the imagination. Some questions haunt the human mind, like shadows that stretch infinitely across the fabric of time. They whisper in the silence of the night, weaving their way through the corridors of our thoughts, demanding answers that may never come. One such question, perhaps the most profound of all, is this: what existed before the universe? If all of space and time, every star, every galaxy, every particle of matter erupted from the singularity of the Big Bang, then what came before it? Was there ever a before, or is time itself merely an illusion, a trick played by the fabric of existence? The human mind craves beginnings. We want to believe that everything has an origin, a point at which it came into being, a moment when nothing turned into something. But when we stare into the abyss of the cosmos, we are met with unsettling possibilities, realities so strange, so paradoxical, that they stretch our very ability to comprehend. Could it be that the universe emerged from absolute nothingness? Or is there something eternal, something that has always been, waiting in the void before time began? If there was a before, then we must ask, what was it like? Was it a realm of infinite darkness, an emptiness so profound that it lacked even the concept of emptiness? Or was it something far more abstract, something beyond space, beyond time, beyond the limits of human understanding? Perhaps the laws of physics themselves were different, so alien to our perceptions that they defy even the most imaginative speculation. One possibility is that before the universe, there was simply nothing. But what is nothing? Is it truly the absence of everything, or does it have its own strange existence? Some physicists argue that nothingness is unstable, that even in the absence of matter and energy, quantum fluctuations can give birth to something, spontaneously, without cause, without reason. In this view, the universe is not a product of divine intervention, nor an inevitability, but a cosmic accident, one that arose from the restless dance of quantum particles emerging from the void. Yet another possibility is that the universe has always existed in some form. If time itself had no beginning, then there was no moment of creation, only an eternal unfolding, an endless cycle of expansion and collapse, birth and rebirth. This idea, known as the cyclical universe theory, suggests that before our universe there was another, and before that, another still, each one giving rise to the next in an infinite chain stretching beyond comprehension. Could we be living in just one chapter of a story with no first page, no true ending? If the universe had no true beginning, then our understanding of time itself may be flawed. We think of time as a river, flowing from past to future. But what if it is something else entirely? something more like an ocean, where past, present, and future coexist all at once. Some physicists propose that time is not a fundamental property of reality, but an illusion born from our limited perspective. If this is true, then asking what came before the universe may be as meaningless as asking what is north of the North Pole. And then there is the simulation hypothesis. What if our universe is not a physical reality at all, but a construct, a vast, intricate simulation created by an advanced intelligence from beyond? If so, then before the universe, there was simply the architect, the programmer, the unseen force that set the parameters of our existence. If the simulation was turned on at some point, then what existed before it? Another simulation? A higher reality? A world as incomprehensible to us as the universe is to a drop of water? Perhaps the most unsettling idea of all is that there was never a before, because time itself began with the universe. Before the Big Bang, there was no before, because time did not exist. It is a concept that defies common sense, one that leaves us grasping for answers that slip like sand through our fingers. We are wired to think in terms of cause and effect. But what if the ultimate cause, the first moment, was itself uncaused? In some ancient philosophies, existence is described as a great illusion, a dream, a mirage, a fleeting reflection of something deeper. If this is true, then perhaps before the universe, there was only pure consciousness, an awareness without form, a presence that existed beyond the constraints of time and space. Could it be that the universe was not born from a great explosion, but from the awakening of something greater? And yet, the vastness of this question is humbling. It reminds us that we are small, fragile beings floating through an ocean of uncertainty. We may never know what existed before the universe, and perhaps that is for the best. Some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. Their answers too vast, too alien, too shattering for the human mind to grasp. As you close your eyes and drift into the quiet embrace of sleep, let your thoughts wander beyond the stars, beyond the galaxies, beyond the edges of time itself. Imagine a place where there is no before, no after, only existence, stretching endlessly in all directions. Perhaps in the silence of dreams, the answer to the greatest question of all awaits. Does time truly exist, or is it an illusion? Exploring whether time is a fundamental reality or a human construct. Time. It is the silent current that carries us forward, the invisible thread that weaves the fabric of our existence. Every moment, every heartbeat, every sunrise and sunset is measured against its passing. We live within its grasp, bound by its relentless march, unable to escape its pull. And yet the question lingers in the quiet corners of the mind. Does time truly exist, or is it merely an illusion, a construct of human perception, an artificial framework imposed on a reality that knows no past, present, or future? When we look at the universe, we see change. A star is born, burns for eons, and then collapses into darkness. A river carves its way through the earth, shaping mountains and valleys over millennia. We ourselves age, our bodies betraying the passage of years. But does change require time, or is time simply the way we measure change? If the sun rose and set without anyone to witness it, would time still exist, or is it only real because we perceive it? Physics offers no easy answers. Classical mechanics treats time as an absolute, an unchanging backdrop against which events unfold. But Einstein shattered that idea with his theory of relativity, revealing that time is not fixed, it bends, stretches, and contracts depending on speed and gravity. A clock on Earth does not tick at the same rate as a clock near a black hole. Two people moving at different speeds will experience time differently. If time were truly fundamental, truly objective, would it behave this way? Quantum mechanics complicates the picture even further. In the strange world of particles and probabilities, time does not play the same role it does in our everyday lives. At the smallest scales, events do not unfold in a neat, linear sequence. There is only uncertainty, entanglement, and superposition. Some physicists even argue that time is not a fundamental part of reality at all, but an emergent property, something that arises only when we observe and interact with the world. If time is an illusion, then what does that mean for our understanding of reality? We think of the past as something that has already happened, the future as something that has yet to come, and the present as the fleeting moment we inhabit. But what if all moments exist simultaneously? and we only experience them one at a time because of the way our minds are structured. What if our perception of time is like reading a book where the pages are already written, but we can only see one sentence at a time? Some theories suggest that the universe itself is timeless. In the block universe theory, past, present, and future are all equally real. Time does not flow, it simply is. Everything that has ever happened and everything that will ever happen already exists, laid out like a vast cosmic tapestry. We are like travelers following a predetermined path, moving through a landscape that is already there, unaware that the road stretches infinitely in both directions. If time is an illusion, then free will itself comes into question. If the future already exists, if our choices are simply moments we have not yet reached, then do we truly make decisions, or are we merely playing out a script that has already been written? It is a troubling thought, one that unsettles the very foundation of what it means to be human. We like to believe that we shape our own destiny, that we carve our own path through time. But if time is an illusion, then perhaps we are merely characters in a story that has already been told. And yet, we feel time. We feel its weight in the lines on our faces, in the memories we cherish, in the anticipation of what is to come. We measure our lives in days and years, in moments of joy and sorrow, in the ticking of the clock and the turning of the seasons. If time is not real, then why does it shape us so profoundly? Is it possible that, even if time is an illusion, it is a necessary one? One that allows us to make sense of the universe, to impose order on the chaos of existence? There are cultures that see time differently. Some indigenous traditions do not divide time into past, present, and future, but see it as a vast, interconnected whole. In these worldviews, ancestors are not gone but ever present, and the future is not a distant place but woven into the fabric of the now. Could it be that our linear perception of time is simply a limitation of our minds, a constraint we have imposed upon ourselves, rather than an inherent truth of the cosmos? Time feels relentless, but is it truly moving forward? The arrow of time, as physicists call it, is tied to entropy, the gradual increase of disorder in the universe. A shattered glass does not spontaneously reassemble. A candle does not unburn. The past feels fixed, the future uncertain. But what if this is merely a consequence of how we observe the world, rather than a fundamental law? Could the arrow of time be an illusion, a byproduct of our limited perception, rather than a true property of the universe? Some theorists speculate that time might not even exist in the way we think it does. Perhaps what we call time is merely a convenient way to describe the interactions of particles and energy. Maybe the universe does not evolve over time, but simply is, a frozen, unchanging reality that we perceive as dynamic only because of the way our consciousness interacts with it. And if time is not real, then what of death? We fear it as the end of our existence, the point at which time runs out. But if time is an illusion, then perhaps death itself is not what we think it is. If all moments exist simultaneously, then are we ever truly gone, or are we simply shifting our awareness to another part of the cosmic tapestry? As you lie in the quiet darkness, feeling the slow rhythm of your breath, let yourself drift beyond boundaries of time. Imagine a reality where past and future are meaningless, where all that exists is an eternal now. Perhaps, in this moment of stillness, you are closer to the truth than you have ever been. Perhaps time is not something that carries you forward, but something you create, an illusion that allows you to navigate the vast, boundless mystery of existence. What is consciousness, and where does it come from? The greatest mystery of the mind and its origins. Consciousness, the very essence of experience, the awareness of being, the ability to think, perceive, and reflect upon one's own existence. It is so fundamental to our lives that we rarely stop to question it, and yet, it remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of science and philosophy. What is consciousness? Is it simply a product of the brain, a byproduct of electrical signals and neural activity? Or does it arise from something deeper, something more profound, something beyond the physical world? To understand consciousness, we must first recognize how elusive it truly is. Science can measure brainwaves, map neural activity, and analyze thought patterns, but it cannot explain why we experience the world the way we do. A computer can process information, solve problems, and even simulate human-like responses. But does it know that it exists? Does it feel? Does it dream? The difference between a sophisticated machine and a conscious being is not intelligence. It is awareness, the strange and undeniable sensation of being something. Some scientists argue that consciousness is merely an emergent property of the brain, much like how a storm emerges from air pressure and temperature changes. In this view, the mind is nothing more than the sum of its parts, neurons firing, synapses connecting, chemicals transmitting information. But if consciousness is just a product of physical interactions, why does it feel like something more? Why do we have an inner world, a first-person perspective that no one else can access? Why does a sunset feel beautiful? Why does music move us? Why do we experience joy, fear, love? Philosophers have long struggled with the hard problem of consciousness, the question of why subjective experience exists at all. Science can explain how light enters the eye and is processed by the brain, but it cannot explain why we see colors, why red feels different from blue, why pain hurts. If the brain is simply processing electrical signals, why should those signals create the rich, vivid, deeply personal experience of being alive? Some theories suggest that consciousness might not be an emergent property of the brain at all, but something fundamental to the universe itself. Panpsychism, for example, proposes that consciousness is not created by the brain, but is instead a basic property of reality, much like space, time, and gravity. In this view, everything, every particle, every atom, every speck of dust, possesses some form of awareness, no matter how primitive. The human brain, then, does not generate consciousness, but rather organizes it, shaping it into the complex thoughts and experiences we know. If consciousness is fundamental, then the universe itself might be alive in some way. Stars, planets, galaxies, do they experience existence on a level we cannot comprehend? Does the cosmos itself possess a kind of awareness, a vast intelligence beyond our own? Could it be that what we call consciousness is not something confined to individual minds, but something woven into the very fabric of reality? Others propose that consciousness is linked to quantum mechanics, the strange and mysterious rules that govern the subatomic world. The quantum consciousness theory suggests that the brain does not function purely as a biological machine, but instead interacts with quantum processes, tapping into an unseen level of reality. Some have even speculated that consciousness itself plays a role in shaping the physical world, that the act of observation is what collapses quantum possibilities into a single reality. Could it be that our minds are not just observers of the universe, but active participants in its creation? If consciousness is not just a product of the brain, then what happens when we die? If awareness is fundamental, does it simply dissolve back into the cosmos, much like a wave returning to the ocean? Some spiritual traditions have long held that consciousness is eternal, that it is not born from the brain but merely channeled through it. Near-death experiences, past life memories, and reports of consciousness existing outside the body all hint at the possibility that what we truly are is something far greater than the physical form we inhabit. And yet, we are bound to our bodies. We see through our eyes, think with our brains, feel with our hearts. If consciousness exists beyond the physical, then why does damage to the brain affect our awareness? Why can a head injury alter personality, erase memories, change perception? If consciousness is separate from the brain, then why does it seem so tightly linked to it? The mind-body problem remains unsolved, a puzzle that defies both science and philosophy. Some believe that consciousness is a kind of illusion, that the feeling of being a self, an individual experiencing life, is nothing more than a trick played by the brain. According to this view, we don't truly exist as separate entities. Rather, we are collections of thoughts, memories, and perceptions held together by the illusion of continuity. If this is true, then what are we? If the self is an illusion, then who or what is having this experience right now? Meditation and altered states of consciousness offer another perspective. Many who have explored deep states of awareness report a sense of dissolving, of merging with something greater, of realizing that the self is not separate from the universe, but one with it. Could it be that our normal waking consciousness is a kind of filter, limiting our perception of reality? Do we only experience a fraction of what is truly there? And if we could step beyond this filter, would we discover that we are not individual beings at all, but facets of a single, boundless awareness? The search for the origins of consciousness takes us deep into the mysteries of existence itself. Is the universe inherently aware? Is consciousness something that evolves, or has it always existed? If we could understand its true nature, would we unlock the secrets of reality itself? Or is consciousness something that cannot be explained, something that must simply be experienced? As you close your eyes and drift into the stillness of sleep, let these thoughts fade into the background of your mind. Feel the weight of your own awareness, the quiet hum of existence itself. Perhaps the question is not what consciousness is, but rather what it feels like. To simply be, to exist in this moment, in this vast, mysterious universe. Aware, alive, infinite. Are we living in a simulation? The unsettling possibility that reality is not what it seems. What if everything you know, every sight you see, every sound you hear, every sensation you feel, is nothing more than an illusion? What if the world around you, the vast universe itself, is not the ultimate reality, but rather a sophisticated simulation? This idea, once relegated to the realm of science fiction, is now taken seriously by philosophers, physicists, and even some of the world's most brilliant minds. The simulation hypothesis suggests that what we perceive as reality may in fact be an artificial construct, a highly advanced program running on a system beyond our comprehension. But if we are living in a simulation, who or what created it? And more importantly, how would we ever know? The idea of reality being an illusion is not new. Ancient philosophies, from Plato's allegory of the cave to Eastern spiritual traditions, have long suggested that what we experience is only a shadow of a deeper truth. But modern technology has given this idea a new dimension. Consider video games. Early ones were simple, pixelated, two-dimensional experiences. Today, they are immersive, realistic, and even incorporate artificial intelligence that reacts dynamically to players' actions. If technology has advanced this much in just a few decades, imagine what it might be capable of in thousands or even millions of years. Could an advanced civilization create a simulated world so realistic that the beings inside it, us, would never know the difference? One of the strongest arguments for the simulation hypothesis comes from a thought experiment known as Bostrom's trilemma, proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom. He suggests that at least one of the following must be true. 1. Almost all civilizations go extinct before developing the ability to create simulations. 2. Advanced civilizations that do survive have no interest in creating simulated realities. Or 3. We are almost certainly living in a simulation. If advanced civilizations do exist, and if they are capable of running simulations, then the number of simulated worlds would far outnumber real ones. Statistically speaking, this means it is far more likely that we are in a simulation than in base reality. Think about dreams for a moment. When you're inside a dream, everything feels real. The sights, the sounds, the emotions. You do not realize that it is a fabrication until you wake up. If a simulation is advanced enough, could it be indistinguishable from waking reality? What if we are all living inside such a dream right now, unaware that there is something beyond it? Could death simply be the moment we wake up into another existence? And if that is the case, who or what is the dreamer? One of the more unsettling implications of the simulation hypothesis is the possibility that our reality is being controlled or manipulated. If we are inside a simulation, then it stands to reason that whoever or whatever is running it has the power to alter its rules, rewrite its history, or even end it at will. Just as a programmer can modify a video game's environment or change the behavior of characters, could our perceived reality be subject to unseen changes? Have you ever experienced a moment where something felt inexplicably different, as if reality had subtly shifted? Some call these glitches in the matrix, anomalies in the fabric of existence that hint at an artificial nature beneath the surface. Even physics itself seems to support the idea that our universe behaves like a simulation. Quantum mechanics, the study of the tiniest particles in existence, reveals that reality is not as solid or predictable as it seems. Particles behave differently when they are observed, as if reality is being rendered only when it is being looked at. Much like how a computer simulation only generates what is necessary to be displayed on the screen. Could it be that our universe functions in a similar way, conserving resources by only rendering what is needed at any given moment? Mathematical patterns also hint at an underlying structure to our reality. Scientists have found that the fundamental laws governing the universe resemble the kind of code used in computer programming. Theoretical physicist James Gates even discovered error-correcting codes, similar to those used in software, embedded in the equations of string theory. If nature operates on such structured principles, could it be that it was programmed that way? If a simulation needs rules, then what we perceive as the laws of physics may just be the code governing our experience. But if we are in a simulation, who or what created it? Some speculate that an advanced civilization, perhaps even our own far future descendants, could have built it. If humanity survives long enough, we might develop the ability to create entire simulated worlds filled with conscious beings. If this is possible, then there is no reason to think it has not already happened. Are we simply digital minds existing within a cosmic experiment? Could our every action be observed, recorded, and analyzed by entities beyond our comprehension? Others take a more spiritual approach, suggesting that the simulation is not a technological construct, but a metaphysical one. Many religious traditions describe reality as an illusion, a temporary experience designed for learning, growth, or some higher purpose. In Hinduism, for example, the concept of Maya suggests that the physical world is not the ultimate truth, but rather a veil covering a deeper reality. Could it be that our simulated existence is not just an accident of technology, but an intentional creation designed to test, challenge, or guide us toward enlightenment? Perhaps the most profound question is this: if we are in a simulation, does it matter? If our experiences feel real, if our emotions are genuine, if our struggles and joys shape who we are, then does it make a difference whether this world is a simulation or not? If everything we know is artificial, does that make it any less meaningful? Or does it mean that meaning itself is something we create, regardless of what lies beyond? For now, we have no way of proving whether we live in a simulation or not. But the mere possibility forces us to rethink the nature of reality, the meaning of existence, and the true scope of what might be possible beyond our understanding. And so, as you close your eyes and drift into sleep, let your mind wander through the vast unknown, through the possibility that the world you know is but a reflection of something greater. Perhaps you will wake up one day to a new reality, one beyond the simulation, one where the true nature of existence finally becomes clear. Why is there something rather than nothing? The ultimate philosophical paradox of existence. Why does anything exist at all? Why is there a universe filled with stars and galaxies, with life and consciousness, instead of an endless void of absolute nothingness? This question is perhaps the deepest and most unsettling of all philosophical paradoxes. It is a question that transcends physics, philosophy, and human understanding itself. Every explanation we attempt to give assumes the existence of something, whether it be physical laws, quantum fields, or a divine creator. But what if there was once truly nothing? Could nothing even exist? Or is existence itself an inevitability, a fundamental state that could never have been otherwise? To contemplate nothingness is to confront an impossibility. Try to imagine a state where absolutely nothing exists: no space, no time, no energy, no laws of physics, no observer, no thoughts, no awareness. But here's the problem. The moment you imagine nothingness, you are already filling it with something. The very act of considering nothing introduces something, because your thoughts, your awareness, and your imagination exist. True nothingness is not even the blackness behind closed eyes, not even the emptiness of deep space, because those still exist. Could it be, then, that nothingness is an illusion, an impossibility? Could it be that something had to exist because true nothingness was never an option? One of the most perplexing aspects of this question is that science, for all its power, struggles to provide an answer. Physics tells us how things work within existence. It explains the evolution of the universe after the Big Bang, the laws governing matter and energy, and the structure of space and time. But it does not, and perhaps cannot, explain why there was a Big Bang at all. Why were there laws of physics in the first place? Why was there anything for those laws to govern? The very existence of scientific principles assumes the presence of something. But why should those principles exist instead of an absolute void? Some philosophers argue that the very concept of nothingness is flawed. The great German philosopher Martin Heidegger famously called this the fundamental question of metaphysics, and some thinkers suggest that existence is simply the default state. Perhaps there was never a transition from nothing to something. Perhaps something has always existed in some form, shifting through different manifestations, but never truly reaching absolute nothingness. Could it be that non-existence is not a real possibility, that existence is eternal, without origin or cause? But then comes another disturbing thought. If something had to exist, why this? Why this particular universe, with these particular laws of physics, these particular forces, these particular particles? Why a universe that allows life intelligence and self-awareness to emerge? If existence was inevitable, why does it take the precise form we experience? Could there be infinite other realities governed by different rules, with different forms of existence we cannot even conceive? Are we simply inside one of many possible somethings, with an infinite array of other somethings beyond our perception? One possible explanation comes from quantum mechanics. In the strange world of the quantum realm, particles can spontaneously pop in and out of existence due to fluctuations in quantum fields. This has led some scientists to propose that the universe itself could have emerged from a quantum fluctuation, a random event in which a universe simply appeared from a pre-existing quantum vacuum. But this explanation only pushes the question back further. What gave rise to the quantum vacuum in the first place? What set the stage for those fluctuations to occur? If quantum laws allowed the universe to emerge, then what allowed those quantum laws to exist at all? Others turn to the concept of a multiverse. Perhaps our universe is just one of countless others, each with different properties, and we happen to exist in the one where conditions allow us to observe it. If there are infinite universes, then the question of why something exists might be reframed. It is not that something had to exist, but rather that all possibilities exist somewhere, and we simply find ourselves in one of them. But even the multiverse does not escape the ultimate question. Why is there a multiverse at all, rather than nothing? Some believe the answer lies in logic itself. The philosopher John Leslie proposed the idea of an axiarchic necessity, that existence is inevitable because non-existence is illogical. Some mathematical theories suggest that all possible mathematical structures must exist, and our universe is simply one expression of these structures. In this view, reality is not something that was created, but something that necessarily follows from the principles of logic and mathematics. But can logic itself be an explanation? Or does it simply shift the mystery into another form? Then there is the theological perspective, the idea that a divine creator brought existence into being. For centuries, many have argued that God is the reason there is something rather than nothing. If God is eternal without beginning or end, then he is the explanation for why there was never nothingness. But even this raises profound questions. Why does God exist rather than nothing? If God is the source of everything, what is the source of God? Does existence itself have no ultimate explanation, no deeper reason, simply a brute fact that must be accepted? Perhaps the question itself is flawed. When we ask, why is there something rather than nothing, we assume that nothing was ever a possibility. But what if it never was? What if existence is the only true reality, the only possible state? If so, then our search for an answer may be in vain, because the question is not one that needs answering, but one that simply reminds us of the strangeness of being. As you lie in bed, letting your thoughts drift through the vast expanse of the unknown, consider this. In all of infinity, in all of time and space, you exist. You are a part of this great mystery, a conscious fragment of the universe, capable of pondering its own existence. Perhaps the question of why there is something rather than nothing is one that will never be answered, because it is not meant to be answered. Perhaps it is meant to be felt, to be wondered at, to be marveled at in quiet moments of reflection. And so as you close your eyes, let the mystery embrace you. Let the weight of existence settle into your mind like the gentle whisper of a dream, and drift softly into the unknown. Is infinity real, or just a mathematical concept? Can something truly go on forever? Infinity. It is a word that stretches beyond the limits of human comprehension, a concept that defies the constraints of reality as we understand it. It is the idea of something without end, something so vast that no matter how far you go, how much you count, how deeply you explore, there is always more. But is infinity real? Does it exist in the physical world, or is it merely a trick of mathematics, a useful abstraction with no true counterpart in reality? This question has haunted philosophers, mathematicians, and physicists for centuries, forcing us to confront the limits of our understanding and the nature of existence itself. Mathematics embraces infinity effortlessly. The simplest example is the number line. Counting never stops. You can always add one more. No matter how large a number you reach, there is always a number beyond it. But does this mean numbers actually go on forever? Or is infinity just a convenient concept that allows us to describe something we can never fully grasp? In mathematics, infinity behaves in strange ways. There are different sizes of infinity. Some infinities are larger than others. The infinity of whole numbers is smaller than the infinity of real numbers between 0 and 1. This suggests that infinity is not just one thing, but a multitude of boundless possibilities. But does any of this exist outside the human mind? The physical universe presents a different challenge. Space appears vast, but is it infinite? If you travel in one direction forever, will you always find more space, or will you eventually reach an edge, a boundary? The observable universe is limited. We can only see as far as light has had time to travel since the Big Bang. Beyond that, the universe may go on indefinitely, or it may be curved in a way that loops back on itself. If space is truly infinite, then there are infinite galaxies, infinite stars, and, if physics allows it, perhaps infinite versions of you, living slightly different lives in distant corners of existence. Time introduces another dimension to the puzzle. Does time go on forever? Was there a beginning, and will there be an end? The Big Bang suggests that time began around 13.8 billion years ago, but what about before that? Some theories suggest that time is infinite in both directions, stretching back into an eternal past and forward into an unending future. Others propose that time is cyclic, repeating in endless loops, making infinity not a straight line, but a never-ending circle. But if time truly never began and will never end, then how can we comprehend such an existence? Can something be infinite if we can never fully measure it? Physics often deals with the concept of infinity, but struggles to incorporate it into reality. Black holes, for example, present a troubling infinity. When matter collapses into a singularity, its density is said to become infinite, meaning it occupies zero volume but retains all its mass. But does infinity actually exist in a black hole? Or is this simply a sign that our equations break down, that our understanding of physics has hit a limit? Many physicists believe infinities in equations signal a problem, not a feature of reality. Perhaps infinity is a sign that we are missing something fundamental, that we need new mathematics, new physics, new ways of thinking. Even at the smallest scales, infinity lurks. In quantum mechanics, particles can occupy an infinite number of possible states, yet reality seems to limit what we can observe. The concept of the Planck length, the smallest possible meaningful measurement, suggests that perhaps reality is not infinitely divisible. Perhaps there's a fundamental limit to space and time, a point at which infinity ceases to apply. If so, then infinity may be nothing more than a useful fiction, a concept we rely on because our minds struggle with the idea of limits. Then there is the philosophical aspect of infinity. If infinity is real, then what does it mean for our place in the universe? Does an infinite universe mean infinite versions of history, infinite versions of you? If time is infinite, then does everything that can happen eventually have to happen over and over again in an endless cycle? Does infinity strip meaning from our choices, rendering everything inevitable? Or does it suggest boundless potential, an existence where anything is possible, given enough time? Religious and spiritual traditions have long grappled with the idea of infinity. Many concepts of God describe an infinite being, without beginning, without end, limitless in power and knowledge. Eternity, the promise of an infinite afterlife, is a fundamental aspect of many faiths. But is this infinity the same as the mathematical infinity? Or is it something beyond human comprehension, something that exists outside the rules of space and time. If infinity exists in the divine, then is it a property of reality itself, woven into the fabric of existence? The human mind struggles with infinity because we are finite beings. We experience time in moments, we exist in a defined space, and our lives have a beginning and an end. The idea of something without limits, without end, is so foreign to our experience that we can never fully grasp it. We can describe infinity, we can calculate it, but can we truly understand it? Perhaps infinity is not something to be understood, but something to be accepted, an idea that reminds us of the vastness of what we do not know. What happens after death? A question that science, philosophy, and religion have never answered. Death is the great unknown, the one certainty that every living being must face, yet it remains an impenetrable mystery. It is a question that lingers at the edges of human understanding, a whisper in the dark that neither science, nor philosophy, nor religion has ever truly answered. What happens when the body takes its final breath? Is it the end, a silent erasure of everything we are? Or is it a transition, a passage into something vast and unimaginable? The thought alone is enough to send shivers through the soul, for it forces us to confront the deepest fear of all, the possibility that one day we may simply cease to be. There is something profoundly unsettling about watching life leave a body. One moment, a person is present, breathing, thinking, feeling. The next, they are still, empty, as if something invisible has been stripped away. It is a sight that humbles and terrifies, for it makes us question the nature of existence itself. If the body remains, then what is missing? Where does the self go? Is it simply an illusion created by the brain, a fragile collection of memories and electrical signals that dissolve the moment the neurons go quiet? Or is there something more, something science cannot yet measure, a part of us that continues beyond the veil? In the final moments of life, something strange seems to happen. Those who have neared death and returned often describe sensations that defy explanation. Some speak of feeling detached from their bodies, watching the world from above as if they had become weightless, unbound. Others describe seeing a tunnel of light, a warmth that cannot be put into words, a peace deeper than anything they have ever known. Some claim to have met lost loved ones, to have glimpsed a place that felt more real than reality itself. Are these merely hallucinations, the dying brain flooding itself with chemicals, or are they glimpses of a hidden truth, a reality waiting just beyond the threshold of death? Science tells us that when the heart stops beating and the brainwaves cease, life as we know it comes to an end. The body begins its slow return to the earth, its cells breaking down, its atoms scattering back into the universe. But while we understand what happens to the physical form, we do not know what happens to the experience of being alive. If consciousness is just a product of the brain, then its death should mean the end of awareness. But if consciousness is something more, something not bound to the physical body, then perhaps death is not an end, but a transformation. Throughout history, countless cultures have believed in some form of life beyond death. Some envision an afterlife where the soul is judged and sent to realms of paradise or suffering. Others speak of reincarnation, the idea that the soul sheds one body only to take on another, continuing its journey through time. There are those who believe that death is merely a return to the universe, emerging with something infinite and all-encompassing. But what if the truth is something else entirely? Something beyond all human comprehension? What if death is not an end, nor a continuation, but something so foreign to our understanding that no words could ever describe it? If we are more than just physical bodies, then where does the self reside? Some scientists have begun to explore the idea that consciousness may not be confined to the brain at all. Quantum theories suggest that the mind may be woven into the very fabric of reality, existing beyond time and space. If this is true, then perhaps death does not erase us, but merely shifts us into another state, like a ripple fading into the ocean, yet never truly disappearing. Could it be that what we call the self is not something housed within us, but something we are merely tapping into, a vast and eternal awareness that continues long after our physical forms are gone? And yet, the most unsettling possibility remains the idea of absolute nothingness. The thought that death could be the end of everything we are, that our awareness simply vanishes into a void of silence, is a concept almost impossible for the human mind to grasp. How can we comprehend what it means to not exist? We are used to experiencing time, thought, sensation. How can we imagine the absence of all of it? And yet, if nothingness is truly what awaits us, then there will be no pain, no fear, no regrets. There will simply be nothing. But even if the mind fades, the body does not vanish into oblivion. The atoms that once made up our bones and blood do not disappear. They return to the earth, becoming part of the endless cycle of the cosmos. Perhaps, in a way, death is not a loss, but a transformation. The air we once breathed, the energy that once animated us, all of it remains, reshaped into something new. And if matter and energy never truly vanish, then perhaps consciousness follows the same rule. Perhaps it merely takes on a new form, one beyond our ability to perceive. For all our advances, science still cannot answer the question of what happens after death. Some argue that it is simply the end, an irreversible shutdown of the mind. Others point to near-death experiences, to quantum theories, to spiritual traditions that have long spoken of something beyond the physical world. But no one knows for certain. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery of all, not just what happens after death, but whether we will ever be able to know the answer before we reach that point ourselves. And so the question remains, what happens when we close our eyes for the final time? Do we awaken in another place, another form, another existence? Or do we slip away into the void, our thoughts dissolving like mist in the morning sun? Perhaps the truth is stranger than we could ever imagine. Perhaps the end is not an end at all, but something greater than we have ever dreamed. Until that moment comes, all we can do is wonder, gazing into the unknown, waiting for the day when the answer is finally revealed. Do we have free will, or is everything predetermined? The debate that challenges our perception of choice. The question of free will is one of the oldest and most unsettling philosophical dilemmas in human history. We live our lives believing that we are in control, that we make choices of our own volition, that our decisions shape our destiny. But what if that's just an illusion? What if everything we do, every thought, every action, every so-called choice, is already determined by forces beyond our control? What if the paths we walk were set in motion long before we ever took our first step? The idea that we might not be truly free is a disturbing one, for it challenges the very foundation of our identity. And yet, the deeper we explore this question, the more uncertain the answer becomes. At the core of this debate lies a simple yet profound paradox. If the universe operates under fixed laws of cause and effect, then every action we take is merely the result of prior causes. If that is true, then every decision we make was always going to happen exactly as it did. But if we reject that idea and claim that we have true freedom of choice, then we must explain how we are capable of acting outside the chain of causality. This contradiction has baffled philosophers, scientists, and theologians for centuries, yet no definitive answer has ever been found. Consider for a moment your own life. Think about the choices you've made, what to study, who to befriend, where to live. Each of those decisions may feel like an exercise of free will, but if you trace them back, you'll see that they were influenced by countless factors beyond your control. Your upbringing, your genetics, your environment, your past experiences, all of these shaped the way you think, the way you feel, and ultimately, the way you act. Were you ever truly free, or were you simply playing out a script written by everything that came before you? Determinism, the idea that every event is caused by preceding conditions, suggests that free will is nothing more than an illusion. If the universe is governed by physical laws, then every particle in our brain, every neuron that fires, is simply following those laws. In this view, our thoughts are just the inevitable outcome of a long chain of causes stretching back to the beginning of time. The moment the universe was set into motion, everything that would ever happen, including every decision we would ever make, was already determined. But if determinism is true, then what does that mean for morality, for responsibility, for the way we see ourselves? If every action is predetermined, can we truly blame anyone for their choices? Is a criminal guilty of their crime if they could not have acted differently? Are we responsible for our successes, or were they simply the inevitable result of circumstances? If free will is an illusion, then praise and punishment alike become meaningless, nothing more than echoes of a universe unfolding as it must. Yet, despite the compelling logic of determinism, the feeling of free will is impossible to ignore. We experience ourselves as agents of our own decisions. We weigh options, we deliberate, we feel as though we can choose one path over another. If free will does not exist, then why do we feel so strongly that it does? Is it merely an illusion crafted by our minds, or is there something real behind it? Some philosophers propose a middle ground known as compatibilism, the idea that free will and determinism can coexist. In this view, even if our choices are influenced by prior causes, we can still be considered free if our actions align with our desires and intentions. In other words, as long as we are not forced against our will, we are still making meaningful choices. But does this definition truly capture what it means to be free, or is it just a rebranding of determinism with a softer edge? Neuroscience adds another layer to this debate. Studies have shown that the brain makes decisions before we become consciously aware of them. In experiments, researchers have detected neural activity indicating a choice before the subject even realizes they have made a decision. This suggests that what we call free will may be nothing more than a post hoc rationalization. Our brain decides first, and our consciousness merely catches up, creating the illusion of control. If that is the case, then our sense of agency is nothing more than a trick played by the brain, a story it tells itself to make sense of its own actions. Yet, some argue that free will is not a matter of physical causality, but of something deeper, something beyond science. Many religious and spiritual traditions hold that humans possess a soul, an inner essence that is separate from the deterministic workings of the universe. In this view, free will is not just a feature of human experience, but a fundamental truth, an inherent gift that allows us to transcend mere cause and effect. If we are more than just biological machines, if consciousness is something separate from the physical world, then perhaps our choices are not bound by the strict laws of physics. The concept of quantum mechanics has also been introduced into this debate. Unlike classical physics, which is deterministic, quantum mechanics suggests that at the smallest level, events can be random and unpredictable. Some theorists speculate that if the brain operates at a quantum level, then perhaps human decision-making involves elements of randomness, allowing for genuine freedom of choice. But randomness is not the same as free will. If our choices are dictated by chance rather than intention, can we really call that freedom? Ultimately, the question of free will may never be fully answered. Perhaps we are free, or perhaps we are merely playing out roles in a script written by the past. But whether we are the authors of our fate or just characters in a predetermined story, the experience of choosing, of living, of being remains real to us. And maybe, in the end, that is enough. What is the edge of the universe like? A journey to the furthest reaches of space and thought. The idea of an edge to the universe is one that stretches the boundaries of human imagination. When we look up at the night sky, we see stars scattered like shimmering fragments of eternity, and we wonder, does it ever end? Is there a final point beyond which nothing exists? Or does the universe simply go on forever, an unbroken expanse of space and time? The deeper we venture into this question, the more we realize that the answer is not just about physics, it's about the very nature of reality itself. The edge of the universe is not just a physical location. It is a concept that forces us to rethink our understanding of existence, dimensions, and even time itself. To grasp what the edge of the universe could be, we must first understand what we mean by universe. The observable universe, the part we can see, is limited by the speed of light and the age of the cosmos. Light from distant galaxies has taken billions of years to reach us, and beyond that, there are regions of space we can never observe, places where light has not yet had time to travel to us since the Big Bang. This gives us a kind of horizon, like standing on the shore of an infinite ocean. We can see only so far, but we have no idea what lies beyond. Some theories suggest that beyond the observable universe, space continues indefinitely, a never-ending expanse stretching far beyond our comprehension. If this is true, then there is no edge, just an infinite continuation of galaxies, stars, and cosmic structures, fading further and further into the unknown. But infinity itself is a strange concept, one that defies our human intuition. We are used to things having limits, yet the universe may defy that expectation entirely. On the other hand, some physicists propose that the universe may be curved in such a way that traveling in one direction indefinitely could eventually bring you back to where you started, like walking around the surface of a sphere. In this scenario, the universe would have no physical edge, because space would wrap around itself in higher dimensions, forming a closed loop. This would mean that if you could somehow journey across the cosmos far enough, you might find yourself arriving back at your original position, having traveled in a giant cosmic circle. But what if the universe does have an actual edge? Could there be a final boundary, a cosmic wall beyond which there is simply nothing? If such an edge exists, what would it look like? Would it be an impenetrable barrier, a shimmering curtain beyond which space itself ceases to exist? Or would it be something far stranger, a point where the laws of physics break down and reality itself begins to unravel? Some theories suggest that beyond our observable universe, there may be other universes, an entire multiverse stretching infinitely in all directions. These parallel universes could be vastly different from our own, governed by different physical laws, filled with entirely alien forms of matter and energy. If this is true, then the edge of our universe might simply be the beginning of another, a threshold between realms of existence we can barely begin to imagine. The cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, provides some of the deepest insights into the shape and structure of the universe. When we look at this radiation, we are essentially peering back in time to the very birth of the cosmos. Some anomalies in this radiation have led scientists to speculate that our universe may, in fact, be brushing up against others, that we may be able to detect the gravitational imprint of other cosmic realms pressing against our own. What if reaching the edge of the universe meant encountering something truly beyond comprehension? What if, instead of a physical boundary, we found a shift in the very nature of space-time, a place where the rules we take for granted, gravity, time, causality, begin to dissolve, revealing a reality beyond our ability to perceive? Some physicists speculate that the universe might be a hologram, a vast projection of information, and if we reached the edge, we might discover that we are living inside a cosmic illusion, a higher dimensional shadow of something even greater. Another mind-bending possibility is that the universe is expanding into something, a higher dimensional space beyond our own. If this is true, then what we perceive as the edge is actually a constantly shifting frontier, pushing ever outward into the unknown. This expansion raises another profound question. What lies beyond the universe? Is it an endless void, an absolute nothingness? Or is it something else entirely, something we lack the ability to even conceptualize? If we could somehow travel to the edge of the universe, would we find ourselves looking out into pure nothingness, a darkness so complete that it defies explanation? Or would we discover something even more strange? A boundary where reality loops back on itself, a place where time and space fold into an endless recursion. These questions remind us that the universe is not just a place. It is a mystery, an enigma that constantly challenges our understanding of existence. The edge of the universe, whether real or imagined, is a concept that forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge, the boundaries of our perception, and the possibility that reality itself is far stranger than we ever dared to dream. As you drift deeper into sleep, let the weight of these questions dissolve into the stillness of the night. Whether free will is real or an illusion, whether the universe is determined or unpredictable, whether our choices matter or are merely echoes of the past, these mysteries remain suspended in the vast unknown, unanswered yet endlessly fascinating. You don't need to solve them now. Just let your mind float, untethered, through the quiet expanse of thought and possibility. Let the rhythm of your breath slow, the gentle pull of sleep guiding you into a space where questions no longer demand answers, only wonder, only peace. And as the night embraces you, rest in the knowledge that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, but simply felt.